are listening to Fragments of History, a podcast series that looks at different events and people in the life of St Josemaria and the history of Opus Dei. Juan Jiménez Vargas, one of the first members of Opus Dei, was, throughout his life, a solid support for St Josemaria. José Carlos Martín de la Hoz, historian, gave a brief snapshot of his life and personality.
At long last, 5 years after the birth of Opus Dei, on January 21, 1933, St Josemaria thought that the time had come to open up a new way of forming university students in ordinary life, to a life of holiness in the world through a means of formation, the circles or classes of St Raphael, in which they would learn the spirit of Opus Dei very close to the reality of their lives, whether as students or professionals. That day, St Josemaria had invited many young university students to attend that first class of formation. There were only 3 of them. One of those touching moments in the history of the work took place at the end of that circle, when St Josemaria took those 3 young people to the chapel of the institution that the nuns had let him use, and took the Blessed Sacrament from the tabernacle, exposed it in the monstrance, and blessed those 3 young people as if they were a crowd. As a matter of fact, God rewarded that daring beginning by making him see not 3, but 33,000, 300,000 of all races and of all colors. One of those 3 who attended that first class of formation was Juan Jiménez Vargas, a student from Madrid. Vargas, a student in his final years of medical school in Madrid, was born in San Bernardo Street, where his father owned a small biscuit factory and where he lived with his 3 sisters and 2 aunts. Juan was a self-made man, a great lover of freedom, a man of few words, short in stature, very forward-thinking. He had studied at the San Isidore Institute, completed his first years of science at the San Bernardo House, and was finishing his medical studies at San Carlos, which is now the Reina Sofia Museum, near the Atocha station. There in that place, a university atmosphere of great standing had been created around the Faculty of Medicine. There was Ramón y Cajal, who was to become one of the great scholars of Spanish medicine, and there was also the youth of Professor Carlos Jiménez Díaz, who would open a whole school of medicine that still continues on today. Juan was enthusiastic about medicine, about caring for patients, for the sick, but he was also enthusiastic about combining his care with research in the field of physiology. Juan was a man already involved in important tasks of research, study, care of the sick, but at the same time he was also involved in the cultural and political environment of his time, where young people were very conscious of all the problems that were raised. We are in 1933, in the midst of the Second Spanish Republic, where the cultural environment was very important, where there was a great desire to do great things, a pro-European environment, and there was also a great political confrontation. The atmosphere, the subject matter on the street among the young people of the time, which nestled in Juan's soul, was that something has to be done. That's why when in December 1932, a student who was a classmate of his introduced him to St Josemaria, it was a dazzling moment for Juan. When that first session, that first class or circle of St Raphael was over, Juan understood perfectly well that he had to devote his life to the sanctification of his professional duties, but at the same time put great effort in helping St Josemaria carry out the apostolic work of Opus Dei, and all that was needed of him. Therefore he spends his free time helping St Josemaria in the formation of young people, and at the same time devotes the necessary time to his studies. When the Spanish Civil War came, he was fully aware that God was giving him a special grace. He told us so many times in those unforgettable get-togethers, when he told us that throughout the Civil War he took on the task of looking after the health of St Josemaria, of the founder, looking after him humanly and spiritually, in whatever way he could, but above all humanly protecting him, helping him to find a place where he could carry out his apostolic work, helping him to cross the Pyrenees, so that he could continue working on the other side, where there was more freedom in the religious field, collaborating with him, looking after him, helping him. We often asked him in our gatherings, "Juan, where did you get that strength, that serenity?" And he would say that it was undoubtedly an inexplicable gift from God. It is interesting that when the Civil War ended, Juan continued on both plans of his life, in close collaboration with St Josemaria. In fact, at the end of the conflict, he was appointed director of the first residence that Opus Dei set up in Jenner Street, and at the same time he was working on his doctoral thesis in medicine. I was lucky enough to go to the General Archive of the Administration and to hold in my hands the file of the competitive examination, which in the year 42 was held for 2 professorships, that of physiology in Barcelona and that of physiology at the University of Santiago de Compostela. 6 candidates presented themselves, and there you can see the material resulting from this competition. There you can see the boxes where the files of all the candidates are kept. It is very impressive to see the 9 research papers that Juan had been doing, from the time he finished his degree until the year 42, when he sat the competitive examination. 9 very serious laboratory works of great importance for physiology. At the same time, it is very interesting to see the oral presentations, the documents that have been presented, the answers to the examining board's questions, and finally, I was very struck by the report written by the secretary of the examining board, where he talks about Juan as number 1 in the competition, and explains how he knows the historiography well, knows the bibliography well, knows the laboratory techniques well, but ends by saying he shows a great love of work. Juan moved to Barcelona in 1942, where he took up the professorship and where he established an atmosphere of great professional enthusiasm, an atmosphere of drive, of economic and cultural development. It is an environment that suits him like a glove. He is a quiet man, he is a silent man, but he is a very realistic man. He knows that he will grow and mature as a professor, and will be able to create a school of physiology if he works seriously, and if he is able to pass on his enthusiasm for his work to many other disciples. And indeed, in the year 55, St Josemaria invited Juan Jiménez Vargas to move to Pamplona so that the incipient University of Navarra, which had already begun with some humanities faculties, could establish the Faculty of Medicine as the first science faculty. Juan leaves Barcelona for Pamplona with part of his team, who embark on the adventure with their teacher to start a new professional career. Soon the posts in the Faculty of Medicine are filled by young professors. He also managed to enthuse Eduardo Ortiz de Landazuri, who had a big professional project in Granada, to leave Granada and move to set up the university clinic and the clinical subjects of the medical degree. The whole atmosphere that was created in Pamplona, around the Faculty of Medicine, around the university clinic, around the School of Nursing, spread to the Faculty of Science, to biology, to pharmacy, so that it gave the University of Navarra a hallmark of scientific seriousness, of research, of teamwork, of enthusiasm for sanctifying the exciting reality of the health sciences. When Juan retires and his disciples come from all over the world to collaborate with him in this tribute volume, and each one contributes their own ongoing research, there are 2 things that become apparent in this spectrum. The first is the breadth of horizons that he had been able to give his disciples, his wide and varied range of disciples from around the world. And secondly, the subject matters, because Juan was a man that from his youth, from his early years as a recent graduate, had been researching things that were very close to reality and to the problems of ordinary people: the cough, sleep, effort, fatigue. When St Josemaria's beatification took place on the 17th of May, 1992, St. Peter's Square was filled with a huge crowd of people, men and women from all over the world, of all races, from all walks of life, of all ages. I, who had the good fortune to live with Juan during 5 summer courses in prior years, had been able to talk a lot in a house in Derio, in Biscaya, called Islabe. When in the midst of that crowd that filled Ciampino airport on the 18th, on the return from the Beatification to the various countries we had come from, the whole of Ciampino airport became a large living room where there was a great deal of conversation. When I entered that hall, suddenly in the middle of the crowd, I saw Juan sitting on his suitcase. He was short in stature and already retired. Our eyes met and he made a gesture of his own to me to come closer. In the enthusiasm of the Beatification of St Josemaria, and therefore in a certain sense also of the beatification of the spirit of Opus Dei, a question sprang to my mind. Well, Juan, yesterday when you saw that crowd in St. Peter's Square, what did you feel? Juan looked at me as if to say, "What's the matter? How can you ask me about my feelings here in the middle of this crowd?" As if to say to me, "You seem to have forgotten who I am." And the answer was very interesting, because he said to me, "Normal. That is to say, for a man of faith, a man of Juan Jiménez Vargas' faith, it seemed normal to him that St Josemaria had told him on January 21, 1933, when those 3 young people in the Portocelli institution had become 30, 3,000, 300,000 of all races, that St Josemaria's dream had come true.